Hello, everybody, and welcome to WCC TV. I'm really excited to be part of this. This is a new initiative from Washington Community Church to give you an opportunity to maybe learn a little bit more about some of the things that are impacting your life and give you some holy guidance that can help shape the way you live and worship and enrich your life. So I'm here with Pastor Zury.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about your background, about yourself?
Okay, well, I am originally from Guatemala and Central America. I was born there a long time ago, obviously. That's where I met my husband, Pastor Steve. And it was a very interesting story because I don't know if I'm getting out of subject, but there were three things that I asked the Lord not to do for me. And I told him, number one, I don't ever want to leave my country. Number two, I don't want to marry an American man. And number three, I don't want to be a pastor's wife. So it seems like I think that God was already preparing me for that, and I was kind of feeling that that's the way it was going to go, and I didn't want to do that. But the Lord really called us into, well, he was already in the mission field. He was already in Guatemala, and then the Lord basically showed me that he was going to be my husband, and I thought, no, and I resisted it for like a whole year, and I said, nope, I don't want that, nope, and finally, the Lord he just put this peace in my heart, and then and here we are.
But, I mean, that's your job to say no, and it's his job to be persistent, and it's the Lord's job to put you two lovebirds together.
Yeah, that's right. And he did it. He really did it. He God worked really hard. It was like I was saying, okay, Lord, I'm gonna just run as fast as I can, and if he catches me and you give me peace, then then it works. But so that's my background, and I'm the fourth of 5 children.
Okay.
I came from my mom was a single mom.
Wow.
And but she was a fighter, an extremely disciplined woman. And so when, I met my husband, and he went and asked my mother if, if he could marry me. And my mother right away said yes, which I was shocked.
Help me out, Mom. Help me out.
Because my mom was one of those people that was extremely disciplined, extremely picky, and there was no one good enough,
Okay.
Some parents are like that.
Yes.
And so I was really shocked that she said yes. And then, that.
Okay. So you came from a large family, and you
Yes.
have raised your own large family. How many kids do you have?
We have 5 children.
5 children. You can't get away from that number.
Nope, 5. And it's a very interesting story because when Pastor Steve was a single man, we didn't even know each other. And one day he was just washing dishes in his parents' house. And all of a sudden the Lord spoke to him, and he said that he was going to give him 5 children. That he was going to give him 3 boys and 2 girls in that order.
Oh, my goodness.
And so when we met and when he proposed and I said yes, he said, the Lord told me that we're going to have 5 children. And I believed him because I wanted a big family too, right?
Okay.
And but I believed him with such intensity that I didn't doubt it for a second. And so we were going around telling people, we're going to have, when we get married, we're going to have 5 children, 3 boys, 2 girls, and people will look at us like we're crazy. And I understand. I mean, if somebody comes up to me, because who can make those things happen? Not even science.
The Lord can.
Yeah, the Lord can.
Yes.
Exactly. And so when they were born and they came exactly in that order, it was just like no one could just make fun of us anymore because God really spoke to him. And he even gave him the names of each one of our children. And so that's how they came, and those are the names that we gave them.
Wow. What would have happened if you had had a 6th one?
We would have named him our own, or we would have asked God to give us a name. But I
Okay.
wanted a 6th one. But it was like, no, we just had, the limit for us.
So you've got a lot of experience raising kids, being from a large family and raising a
Yes.
large family.
Yes.
What would you say your number one goal is to raising children?
Well, let me tell you that I don't consider myself a super experienced mother, and I have learned, I made a whole bunch of mistakes, I think like all parents do. And my hope is that in spite of that, that my children will succeed, and that hopefully, I did what I was supposed to do in spite of my mistakes and my downfalls. But I do believe that we do need to be generational thinkers, people that think generationally. Not just that we think about the child that we have or the children that we have, but we have to think about their children and then their children's children. Because like here, the Bible says, for example, in Proverbs 13:22, it says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. So it is important that we become planners, not only in the physical aspect, financial aspect. We have to plan for the future for our children. We have to pray for our children and for their spouses. From the moment that they were in my womb, we started praying for their spouses. From that very moment, the moment that the child was born, we just lift them up to God and said, God, we dedicate this child to you. And we started praying for their spouses from that very moment. So it takes a lot of prayer. It takes a lot of foresight. And I cannot tell you that I had it all from the beginning, because God knows that, it came little by little, all this understanding that what I needed to do. So we do need to be generational thinkers. Anything that we do, we have to think that we're not only raising our child, but we're raising his child or her child, and then their children's children. And my grandmother was a born again Christian. She was a very strong Christian, and she left such a great inheritance of prayer and believing in God to my mother and her children. And then somehow that disappeared for quite some time. And basically most of my family, they became pagans, from my aunts and uncles. Wow. And a lot of spiritism type of thing going on. But my grandmother was a prayer warrior, for what I know now. And so that inheritance came, eventually to me. God kept me protected from all of that, for all the spiritism and a whole bunch of really difficult things that my family was going through. But I always felt that I was protected, that I was watching it happen, but it wasn't happening to me. And I think it's because God had a plan from the beginning. Since I was like 4 or 5 years old, I knew that there was something special. There was God was there. And he would give me dreams, and I started pursuing God. He saved my life so many times I cannot even count it, from dangers, from accidents, from kidnappings, because in Guatemala it's a different story than it is here, And so, but I feel like because of my grandmother's prayers, I benefit from what she prayed, the inheritance she left me.
So that's the generational aspect that you're thinking of, or that you're talking about when you have your kids. Because frankly, I've got 2 little ones, and I am thinking about the next minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes the next 5 minutes, but I am in the moment. And so thinking generationally is a new way of thinking. So how do you start to do that? Like, what is the next step, first step in changing your balance? Because it's so frantic day to day.
It is. It is. And truthfully, like you said, you can only think, especially with toddlers and babies, you can only think in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But there is a moment that you must come up and take a deep breath. And you got to look to the future. Because all of a sudden, children grow so fast, as you probably already know. And so if we don't come up for air, all of a sudden, they're 10 years old, then 15, then 20, then 30, they're gone. And even though you still have an input on them, even when they're adults, the time to do it is when they're little. That doesn't mean it's too late. I mean, if you're the parent of a teenager or of a young adult, there's still time to deposit everything you've got in them. One way or another, God gives you wisdom to do those things in a way that they can receive it and it's not annoying to them. You know, because especially with teenagers, you know, they get annoyed with you.
But that's the job I'm most looking forward to, is being annoying to my kids. And I'm
All
sure,
right. Well,
yeah, I'm sure my
okay.
wife is ready for me to push that onto them too.
Well, all right.
But
Okay.
so that's good. The generational thinking and just taking time, forcing that. So how do we prepare for our children?
Well, I believe that what the Bible says in Proverbs 22:6, and it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he's old, he will not depart from it. And which means, and there's different words for the word train. It says, some Bible translations say train, others say point, others say start. So God has given you wisdom. I don't know if you experience this, but it doesn't matter how many books you read before your child gets to you. By the time the child number one comes in, you know, you're just getting a grasp of, you know, what parenting is like. Then you get the second one, and it's like they just completely changed the book on you. You know, it's completely different. And so, but God has given you the wisdom, and it's almost like a sixth sense that you have, that you know what your child is going through, you know how to react, you know how to act. And so we train them according to their giftings. We train them, like, for example, you have hopes that your child will go to college.
Yes.
Then you begin to save up for the future, and you begin to talk to them about it, and the highways and the byways, like the Bible says. Don't wait until you give him a Bible lesson.
Okay.
But in day to day, you can teach him 2 words that are real to you, and it will be real to your child. If Jesus is not real to you, if things are not real to you, they will not be real to him either, or to them.
So in thinking generationally, for your kids, do you have the same vision for each, the same thought for each, or is it tailored based on their personality and their path as you get to know them, as they develop their own?
It's both.
It is, okay.
My heart is the same for each one of them. My hopes are the same for each one of them. My dreams are the same for each one of them. But each one has a different personality. Each one perceives love in a different way. So I cannot treat one of my sons the same way I treat the other. I have a completely different relationship. Even when they were little, I related to them in a different way. You know, one of my children was very laid back and calm. The other one was always bouncing off the walls. And so you have the same heart and the same hope, the same dreams, the same prayers for them, but you treat them a little bit different. And it's not like you love one more than the other, because to me, in my book, that's impossible. Because once you have a child, you think, how can I possibly love another child just as much as I love this one? And then all of a sudden, the second child comes in, and woof, your heart expands.
It's amazing.
It
Yes.
is incredible. It's God's grace. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Excuse me. So, in a nutshell, raising kids is hard.
Yeah, it's a challenge, I would
Yes,
say.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And surviving the day to day, and then thinking long term is such a challenge. So, is there anything else that you have to help? Any other tips or any other guidance that you can share?
Well, I have to say that there is something that I did not see when my children were very little. But one of the things that I believe that as parents, as godly parents, have to do to prepare for a child, or to train up a child in the way he should go, is they should get rid of their baggage and their luggage that they themselves carry. There is a lot of transgressions and iniquities that we bring with us from our families, from past generations, and we don't really see them. But there's when you talk about transgressions, is like the child is doing something that he's not supposed to do, disobedience, or doing, and a lot of those things come from the past, the way we were raised, the way that our parents talked to us and trained us, and but I think that there is a time when we need to just go to God and ask Him to break all of those generational curses, because there are generational
blessings.
Bends. There is also generational blessings.
Curses. Okay.
Yes. And so, for example, in my family, there was a lot of divorce going on. And that's a bend. That's like in a relationship, if something is not working out, you just want to run, and that's it. And to some families, that's normal. To my family, it was normal. But because I was a born-again Christian, I loved my husband. I knew that God had him for me. I wasn't just going to quit, right? So to break all those things that come behind us, and we really have to spend some time really seeking for those things. What is the bent in my family? Because every family has a bent. Every family has an iniquity that it's kind of like a natural way of thinking for the family in general. My family had a lot of spiritism behind them, a lot of witchcraft.
Okay.
And so it was kind of easy for me to connect with those things. I was a fan of horror movies and all the supernatural things, But when I was 16, I became a Christian. And that hunger for those things, or that attraction for the things, just was gone.
Okay.
And so there's bents and things that we do that we need to get rid of and say, the buck stops here. I don't want this for my child. But this is a spiritual inheritance. So we need to go to God and say, God, I break this. Break this generational curse of divorce or of any other things that you have seen in your family. And I started, remembering what had happened to my aunts, my uncles, my brothers, my sister. And that's the way to find out, ask the Lord to help you, to show you what you need to let go. And then, like what you were mentioning, the blessings. Mm-hmm. Because there were blessings that came with the family too. So say, God, I receive all those blessings that you have passed down from my grandmother, my grandfather, the foresight, the being a prayer warrior, all that kind of stuff, and wisdom. Because, nowadays, young people and children are inundated with all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And so, those are the ways that we need to prepare to be able to raise our children properly. And really, go to God and ask Him to give you instruction. Sometimes you don't know what to do. You're in the middle of the night and you say, God, what am I going to do? You have teenage children. And there was a time when my 3 sons were at each other's throats. They were in Taekwondo. They were,
Okay.
And they were fighting with each other. There was a lot of strife. So I said, God, what do I do? And He said, get up before they get up, lay hands on them, pray for them, speak in tongues over them, speak the word over them, bless them every morning, say the good things that you see in them. And I thought, how am I going to, do that? And so God gave me a practical way. And that's the beauty about God, that He gives you practical ways. Now, if you think about it, remember in the Bible, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, mm-hmm. They all had that inheritance of Abraham and Isaac. They both lied about their wives. They said that their wives were their sisters so they wouldn't get killed. And Jacob, of course, was a deceiver. His name meant the deceiver. So there was kind of like an inheritance of lying and deception and all that, all those things. So we need to prepare ourselves, spirit, soul, and body, basically. Okay. That's what we need to do for the love of our children and the love of the next generation and the next generation and the next generation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's
Thank you.
You're blowing my mind because as someone that lives in the moment with the 2 kids, thinking long term and asking for God's grace in bestowing blessings and a bright future for the kids is a whole new way of thinking. So thank you very much for sharing that. And thank you guys for joining us at WCC TV. Look forward to you joining us next time.
Bye-bye.